Hello everyone, my name is Nama Quda and I'm a doctorate student at Delft University of Technology, conducting my research as part of the Borders and Territories group at the Department of Architecture. For this presentation, I will be sharing parts of my first year's research on Al-Wahdat camp in Amman, Jordan, as part of my investigation on the architecture of Palestinian refugee camps. To understand the space of Al-Wahdat camp, it needs to be acknowledged that it is not one thing, but a number of what could otherwise be perceived as dichotomous notions existing concurrently. It doesn't exist in one location or one temporal dimension, but that it spans over two locations, the space of origin and the place of residence, existing both in the past and the present simultaneously. This perception helps any researcher or observer understand the space of Al-Wahdat and the process of its transformation. In Jordan, Palestinian refugee camps stand in a condition of ambivalence or a condition of undecidedness between a number of factors and parameters. After almost 6 decades of their establishment, this ambivalence distinguishes those camps from Palestinian refugee camps in other host countries. In my research, I argue that the ambivalent condition in Al-Wahdat camp is the result of what Zygmunt Bauman refers to as the state of crisis, whose aftermath persists and protracts through time, turning what was supposed to be a transient state in search of a solution to a rather permanent condition of uncertainty, characterized by a high level of intensity, sustainability, and rooting in the everyday life of individuals. The crisis in question started in 1948 as the Arab-Israeli War concluded with the establishment of the State of Israel and the ethnic cleansing of 750,000 Palestinians. Gradually, the question of refugees shifted from a political resolution that addressed issues of return to a rather economic and mediative strategy with no definitive conclusion, despite resolution number 194 of the UN's General Assembly that called for permitting refugees return to their homeland. To better explain the sequence of events, let's refer to this diagram. In 1948, the Arab-Israeli War resulted in the exodus of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. In addition, Jordan annexed the West Bank. As a result, two things happened. The first was the establishment of UNRWA by the United Nations Agency as the humanitarian agency responsible for the relief and work of Palestinian refugees in the Near East. To document and monitor the process of aiding the refugees, Palestinian refugees who entered Jordan were registered at the UNRWA offices and were granted the UNRWA identification cards. Simultaneously, the majority of Palestinian refugees who have entered Jordan in 1948 were also granted Jordanian nationality. To supervise and monitor both the Palestinian refugees and their camps, the Department of Palestinian Affairs, or the DPA, was established. UNRWA and the DPA established Al-Wahdat camp in the Yarmouk district in the southeast of Amman. The DPA rented the private land on which the camp was built, leasing it from Al-Hadid family for 99 years. UNRWA designed and built the camps in modular concrete units, hence the name Al-Wahdat, which translates to the units. This distinguishes this camp from the other 9 official UNRWA camps that started off with tents before transforming to modular concrete shelters. In 1956, Al-Wahdat Youth Club was founded, with its name changed later to Al-Wahdat Sports Club. Today, the club plays a symbolic role in the camp space, representing not only Al-Wahdat inhabitants, but also Palestinian refugees in diaspora, in a manner that rendered the club as an important power agent in the camp. Additionally, the legalization of commercial activity in 1983 paved the way to the growth of networks of shop owners driven by the economic power that is changing the space of the camp from a space of refuge to a space of commerce. What resulted were two things. The first was ambivalence of the legal status of refugees between the status of refugees and the status of citizens. The second thing was ambivalence in the camp governance, which could be described as a multi-level model of governance. On the formal level, the DPA collaborates with UNRWA to supervise and conduct their operations and complete their legislative and executive roles. On a less formal level, the Wahdat Club, the Olipolis, and the camp inhabitants themselves are conducting a series of processes and bottom-up tactics that are also shaping and transforming the camp. Together, the ambivalence in the legal status and the camp governance influenced the very nature of the power structure that shaped and transformed the camp. In other words, there is an undecidedness and ambiguity in the decision-making process in the camp. What resulted in addition is an ambivalence in the camp's function. What is the function of the camp today? There is not one answer to that question. The presence and the services of UNRWA, for example, emphasize the role as a temporary refugee camp. The change of building regulations by the TPA over time, on the other hand, emphasize its urbanization. For some of the people in Al-Wahdat, the camp was perceived as a virtual homeland, a home away from home. For Al-Wahdat Club, the camp was a political arena for the different return discourses to unfold. For the merchant networks, the camp was a market space with attractive economic benefits. On a spatial level, that ambivalence is experienced in the camp space in a number of examples. The state of chaos in the camp streets, the informality characterizing the camp's illegal horizontal and vertical expansions, the rapid growth of the commercial zones of the camp, the change in the camp's demographic fabric to include different nationalities after having been established to shelter Palestinian refugees in the beginning, are a few of the examples my research argues to be the result of the camp's ambivalent condition. In reference to what has been discussed today, can you think of such examples from your city where a temporary space of shelter has slowly transformed to a permanent urban condition? Or where the ambivalence in the political and economic conditions have played a role in the city's transformation and expansion? One important thing to remember, in understanding cities today, we should never forget the role politics and economics play as driving factors influencing cities' urban planning and urban form. Thank you.